What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up the Wet Par 50 waterproof par light. They come in two different colors of black and white, but the setup for each is the exact same. So as you can see, it comes with the light itself, a charger to charge your light, and a wireless remote. Now there are many different ways we can have our light positioned, with one way being on its feet just like this so that the light is shining completely upwards. And we can also use the angle bracket on the back of the light so that we can position the light into different angles. Both of these setups are really great for wall washing, so you can take your light and place it on its feet on the floor, completely flush against the wall, so that the light is shining completely upwards. Or you can place it a few inches or a few feet away from your wall and use the angle bracket to position it so that the light is hitting the wall the way you want. You can also use these steps to light up your DJ facade, and you can use way more lights depending on how illuminated you want your wall or DJ facade to be. You'll also notice this screw hole here on the light, so we can attach a lighting clamp in case we wanted to mount our light to a truss. So to do that, I can take a lighting clamp like our very own LC70. I'm going to remove this bolt here from the clamp. Then I'm going to line up the hole of the clamp to the hole here on the light and run my bolt back through to secure the clamp onto the light. So once we have our clamp attached to the light, we're going to loosen this butterfly screw here so that there's enough room to fit the clamp onto the truss. Then we can line the clamp up to any spot on our truss where there's room and tighten the butterfly screw to secure it to the truss. And because it's battery powered, you won't have to worry about running any power to the light, just as long as you make sure it's fully charged. So now let's go over all the different functions on the light, and to get it powered, we're just going to press the power button on the back. So we can use these buttons here to navigate our way through the light. So we have a menu button that will take us to the different menu settings available on the light. We also have an up and down menu so we can navigate through these different menus. And then we have the enter button to go into these settings or save our changes. So I'm going to use the menu button here to go through all the different settings and explain what each setting does. So first up, we have the address menu here, which allows us to set the DMX address for the light, which we'll get into once we start setting up a wireless DMX controller. We also have the DMX channel menu, which again is used with our wireless DMX controller, and this will help us determine if we want to set the light to 3-channel, 4-channel, 6-channel, or 10-channel mode. We'll go over the differences between all of these settings in a bit. Next, we have the master slave menu, where we can either set the light to master or slave mode. Next, we have the NAUN menu. Now this allows us to go into the different color dimmers for the light between red, green, blue, white, amber, and ultraviolet, and customize each dimmer so that we have a fully customized color coming out. So if you wanted to do that for your light, you're going to press enter in this menu. Then you're going to see the red one come up first, and then you can press enter again to customize it. Use the up and down buttons to set the perimeters the way you want. Then you can press enter to save your changes, and then from there you can use the up and down buttons to switch between the different colors. Press the enter button if you want to make a change. Use the up and down buttons to make the change, and then press enter again to save your changes. Next, we have the mode menu, where we can go between the different modes built into the light. One of these modes is the sound mode, where the light will interact with any sound picked up by the microphone. As you can see, it's starting to change color a bit because it's picking up my voice. And if I start to clap, it will also interact and start to change color. In this mode, we can also press enter and use the up and down buttons to adjust the sensitivity of the microphone so that it changes the way it interacts with any sound. So in all these different modes, you can press the enter button to make fine adjustments to each mode, and then once you're done, you can press enter to save your changes and use the up and down buttons to cycle between the different modes. So next we have the static color mode, where we can set the light to a static color. Again, if we want to change the color, we can press enter in this mode, use the up and down buttons to select a new color, and then press enter to save our changes. Next we have the macro static color mode, where we can set the light to a more specific color. So for example, we can press enter in this mode, and if I go up and down, you'll see that we're going through the different shades. So as I went from orange, I went to green, and now we're in the blue territory, and so on and so forth. Next, we have the color cycle mode, where the light will automatically cycle between different colors. And in this mode, we can press the enter button and use the up and down buttons to adjust the speed of the color cycle. Next, we have the color pulse mode where the light will pulse between each color. Again, we can press enter and use the up and down buttons to adjust the speed of the color pulse. And lastly, in the mode menu, we have the color fade mode where the light will fade between each color. And again, we can press enter and use the up and down buttons to adjust the speed in which the colors will fade. So a cool thing is that we can set the light to any of these modes that we just went over, and then we can go to the next menu, which is the strobe menu, and have the light strobe in any of these modes. So in the strobe menu, we can press enter and use the up and down buttons to adjust how fast the light will strobe. Next, we have the battery menu where we can press enter and see how much battery life the light has. Next, we have the remote menu where we can either set the light to the remote 1 setting, the remote 2 setting, or we can turn off the remote control altogether. And we'll go over the difference between the remote 1 and the remote 2 settings in a little bit. And lastly, we have the U512 menu where we can set the light to a different DMX group, which is really important if we want to use the light with a wireless DMX controller, which is actually going to be our next setup. So let's go check that out now. So let's say you wanted to have more control over your lights, you can always use a wireless DMX controller. Now in most wireless setups, the controller and the lights will link together through a wireless DMX code. On the controller we're using today, we can set the wireless code by using a button, and from there we can pick between the colors of red, green, yellow, blue, light blue, pink, or white. But on the lights it actually works a little bit different. So remember we talked about the U512 menu where we can set the code between U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, U6, and U7. The good thing though is that these numbers actually correspond with the color coding that the controller offers. So for example, if you wanted to pair the controller to the lights, you would set the lights to U1 for the red code. So before we go ahead and do that, there are some other steps involved. So we're first gonna start by turning on the wireless DMX controller. Then from there, we're gonna set the DMX code on the controller. And since we mentioned red earlier, I'm gonna wanna set it to red. So on the lights themselves, we can start by going to the address menu and making sure that they're all set to the same DMX address. For today, we'll use A001. The next thing we can do is go to the DMX channel menu. Now this is gonna determine how much control we have over the lights with our controller. From there, we can pick between the 3-channel, 4-channel, 6-channel, or 10-channel mode, which again depends on how much control you want to have over your lights. So for the most control, we're going to set them to the 10-channel mode. The next thing we'll want to do is go to the master slave menu where we can press enter to switch it between the master mode to the D512 mode, and we'll want to set it to the D512 mode in order for the light to get into slave mode. And set it to U1 to match with the red code that we set up on our controller, but remember you can use U2, U3, U4, etc. if you want to use a different color code on the controller. You'll know that your lights are successfully paired once the LEDs underneath the display are flashing green. Lastly, on our controller, we're going to want to activate scanner 1, and now we can see what each fader does for the lights. Starting with fader 1, this acts as the master dimmer, so we can raise that all the way up for the most brightness. Next we have fader 2, which controls the strobe for the lights, but we're not going to notice anything until we set a color. Next we have channel 3 that will control the red LEDs, so if I raise that up, you'll start to see the red coming through. So now that we have a color set, we can raise channel 2 if we want some strobe, and now you'll see that the lights start to strobe. So next we have channel 4 that will control the green LEDs, fader 5 to control the blue LEDs, fader 6 to control the white LEDs, fader 7 to control the amber LEDs, and fader 8 to control the ultraviolet LEDs. The cool thing is we can play around with faders 3 through 8 to make a customized color. So I can raise a little bit of the red, a lot of the green, maybe a little bit of blue, throw some amber in there, and now you'll see we have a fully customized color. Now fader 9 will activate the different modes available on the lights, and depending on the value we set fader 9 to determines what mode the lights are set to. And we can always use the display on the controller to find out what value we're setting the faders to. So for example, if I raise fader 9 anywhere from 81 to 150, this will activate the color cycle mode. And then I can use the last fader, fader 10, to control the speed of the color cycle. So for example, if I raised it all the way up, you'll see that the colors start to cycle a lot faster. If you ever need a reminder of what each fader does in the 10 channel or any of the other DMX channel modes you're using, you can always refer to the DMX channel guide. So now let's say you wanted to have control over your lights, but you didn't want to set up a wireless DMX controller, you can always use the master slave function. To set that up, I'm first going to want to pick out which light I want to use as my master light. So for today, we're going to go with this guy all the way at the end. We're then going to press the menu button till we get to the master slave mode, press enter to change it, and then go up until we see the master sign here and press enter. So now to make sure that all of the lights are communicating together, we can go to the U512 menu and set them all to the same DMX code. So remember, we'll want to go into this setting on all of our lights, press enter, and select a DMX code between U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, or U7. For today, let's use U1. So now we're all set up with our master light, so we can move on to all of these slave lights and just make sure that they're all set to slave mode. To do this, we're going to want to go to the master slave menu on our slave lights, press enter, use the up or down button to select the D512 setting, and press enter again to save the change. After we've done that with the rest of our slave lights, you'll see that the LED underneath the display lights up green, while the master light lights up red. So now we can set our master light to any color or mode while the slave lights follow. So if I use my remote to set the master light to any mode or color, you'll see that the slave lights will follow. Now the cool thing is we can use the master slave function on two different groups of lights so that each group is doing a different thing. So we'll start with this group here and set up a master light for the group. To do that, we'll go to the master slave menu on our master light, press enter, and use the up and down buttons to select the master mode and press enter to save. We'll then take our slave light and go to the master slave menu and use the up and down buttons till we get to the D512 menu and press enter to set its slave mode. We'll also want to set these lights to the same DMX code by going to the U512 menu, press enter, and select any code from U1 to U7. For today, we'll set this group to U7. We're then going to follow the same steps for our second group of lights here, but we're going to want to use a different DMX code. For today, we'll set this group to U1. Now the cool thing is we'll be able to control each of these groups with just one remote, but in order to do that, we have to follow a few steps first. Starting with our first group here, we're going to want to go into the remote settings and select between REN1 or REN2. For this group, we'll select REN1. Now on the second group of lights here, we'll go to the remote settings and set both lights to REN2. So now I can use my remote to control both groups of lights, but in order to switch between the two groups, I'm going to hold down the brightness button on the remote until the LED on top flashes once. Then I'm going to keep holding down until it flashes quickly. And this means I successfully switched the remote group. So now that I have the remote set to group 1, I can use the remote to change my lights. Then if I want to move on to the next group, I'm going to hold down the brightness buttons until it flashes once and then flashes again quickly. And now I have it set to remote 2 to control my second group of lights. So now to quickly explain how the remote works, we have the brightness buttons here to control the brightness of our lights. And like we just showed you, if you hold them down, you can switch between the two groups. Then we have the on and off buttons to control the bulbs of the lights so we can either turn them off or back on. Then we have the static colors here so we can pick between red, green, blue, white, amber, or ultraviolet. Then we can even use these numbers here to set the lights to different color options. Then we have the mode buttons here to set the lights to different modes. So we have the sound mode, which will set the lights to sound mode. We can also set the lights to strobe mode. Next we have the snap mode, the fade mode, and the auto mode. And while we have the lights set to any of these modes, we can use the brightness buttons to control the speed of the modes. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your Wet-Par 50 waterproof par lights. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.